Good morning, dear students. A warm welcome to all of you for our today's digital revision session for the subject Science and Technology Section B. Today, we are going to revise chapter number 6, Classification of Plants, which was a part of our first online assessment. And then we are going to start with the revision for chapter number 7, that is Energy Flow in an Ecosystem. So let's begin with chapter number 6, Classification of Plants. Now, the basic criteria for classifying plants. In the beginning, I had told you what is the need for classification to get a clear idea. To get an idea about the characteristics, we have to classify plants, animals, anything in nature. So, the basis for classification of plants, the first criteria was presence or absence of organs. On the basis of presence or absence of organs, the plants were classified. Second, presence or absence of separate conducting tissues for conduction of food and water. Next criteria was if plants bear seeds, whether that seeds are enclosed in a fruit or not. And another one was presence of number of cotyledons in the seeds. At the higher level, plants were classified on the basis of absence or presence of flowers, fruits and seeds, and based on it, they were classified into cryptograms or phanerogams. So let us begin with the first one, that is cryptogams, divided into three different divisions. The first division, division Thallophyta, division 2 Bryophyta, and division 3 Pteridophyta. Now we are going to see the characteristics of plants belonging to each of these divisions with proper examples and a diagram of any plant related to that particular division. So let us start with the first division, whose example is well known by all of you, that is Spirogyra, division number 1, Thallophyta. Now, these plants which belong to division Thallophyta, they are marine in nature, means they grow mainly in water. This group of plants, they do not have specific parts like root, stem, leaves, flowers. You all know that these are the main parts of the plant. But this group of plants, they do not have the specific parts, but they are autotrophic in nature. What do you mean by autotrophic? Which can prepare their own food. Why they are autotrophic? Due to the presence of chlorophyll. And this group of plants is called algae. Now, when it comes to algae, algae may be unicellular, that is presence of only a single cell, or multicellular, and they may be microscopic, that is very small, which can be seen only under a microscope, or they can be large in size. Examples of algae are Spirogyra, well known by you. You can see the diagram over here, having a cell wall. The main part of it is nucleus, pyrenoids and spiral chloroplasts. Other examples are Ulothrix, Alva, Sargassum, etc. Now you know, in our third online assessment, you will have different objective type questions also in the first part. There I can ask you, Spirogyra belongs to division dash, and different divisions will be given. So you have to find out it belongs to which division, or you should know all the examples of algae which belong to particular division. Now some of this are found in fresh water, some of them are found in the oceans, that is saline water. These plants usually they have a soft and fiber-like body. Now various types of fungi like yeasts and molds which do not have chlorophyll, that is chlorophyll is absent, they also are a part of this division Thallophyta. Next we move on to our next division, division number 2, Bryophyta. The main peculiarity of this group is this group of plants are called the amphibians of the plant kingdom. What do you mean by the term amphibians? The one who can survive on land as well as in water. Now, amphibians is the term usually used for animals like frog, But this division of plants is called the amphibians of plant kingdom. Why? Because they grow in moist soil, but they require water for reproduction. Means they are in contact with both land and water, and hence the term amphibians. These plants are thalloid. This all I had explained to you. Multicellular, having more than one cell, and autotrophic in nature, and reproduce by formation of spores. Now, structure of the plant body in the case of bryophytes is flat, ribbon-like, long, without true roots, stem and leaves. But instead of that, what they have? They have stem-like or leaf-like parts and root-like rhizoids. See, leaf-like parts and root-like rhizoids. They do not have specific tissues for conduction of food and water, means xylem, phloem, absence of the specific tissues. Now, examples of plants belonging to division Bryophyta are, very good example is known by you, moss, that is Funaria. You can see the diagram over here. Merchantia, Anthoceros, Rixia, these are the different examples of plants belonging to you. Should be well known with each and every example. Next is division number 3, Pteridophyta. Now plants from this group, they have well developed roots, stems and leaf and separate tissues for the conduction of food and water. If you refer this division with the prior two divisions which we have seen today, then this group of plants are totally different because they have well developed roots, they have stem, they have leaves. Also, they have separate tissues for conduction of food and water, but these plants do not bear flowers and fruits. Then how they reproduce? They reproduce with the help of spores, which are formed along the back or the posterior surface of their leaves. I had shown you the example of fern, Nephrolepis, in the practicals. Just now we had taken the practicals and I had shown you the real Nephrolepis. I had also shown you the small spores on it. So these plants reproduce asexually by spore formation and sexually by zygote formation, formation of a diploid zygote. They have well-developed conducting system. Examples of plants which belong to Pteridophyta are Nephrolepis, that is fern, Marsilia, Pteris, Adiantum, Equisetum, Selaginella, Lycopodium, etc. All the examples again. Each and every division you take, and what you do, you form columns. 3 columns you form, 3 divisions, their main characteristics you note down, and below that you put the examples. So it will be easy for you to remember. Here we end up with cryptogams. Now we move to the next part, that is phanerogams. Characteristics of phanerogams. Plants which have special structures for reproduction and which produce seeds, they are known as phanerogams. A main characteristic of phanerogams is after the process of reproduction, seeds are formed. These seeds contain the embryo and the stored food. During the germination of seed, the stored food is used for the initial growth of the embryo. Depending upon whether the seeds are enclosed in a fruit or not, phanerogams are further classified into gymnosperms and angiosperms. So let us study about both of them separately. We first begin with the first division of phanerogams, that is gymnosperms. Gymnosperms are mostly evergreen, perennial and woody plants. Now a best example of gymnosperms is the Pyxia or the Christmas tree. Most of you have seen this Christmas tree. Their stems are without branches. The leaves, they form a crown. You can see a crown-like structure. They are without any branch. These plants, they bear male and female flowers on different sporophylls of the same plant. Seeds of these plants do not have natural coverings. So they are without coverings. These plants do not form fruits and therefore they are known as gymnosperms. Main characteristic of gymnosperms is that these plants do not form the fruits and therefore are called gymnosperms. Gymnos means naked and sperms means seeds. Examples are Cycas or Pyxia or the Christmas tree, Moorpunky, Pinus, Deodar, etc. Our next division under phanerogams is division angiosperms. The flowers these plants bear are their reproductive organs. A very well-known plant by you is banana tree. Flowers develop into fruits and seeds are formed within the fruits. If you have seen a banana, inside the fruit you can see their black colored small seeds. Thus, these seeds are covered, hence they are called as angiosperms. Angios means cover and sperms means seeds. The plants whose seeds can be divided into two equal halves or dicotyledons, they are known as dicotyledonous plants, and whose seeds cannot be divided into equal parts, they are known as monocotyledonous plants. Now we are not going to study the characteristics of dicotyledonous and monocotyledonous plants because that part is removed out from our syllabus. Examples of plants belonging to angiosperms are banana, banyan tree, onion, bamboo, etc. So these were the different divisions under cryptograms and phanerogams. So here we end with the revision for chapter number 6, that is classification of plants. The main important thing you have to study in this chapter is each and every example. They will belong to which division, special characteristics of every division, how Thallophyta it varies from Bryophyta, how Bryophyta is different from Pteridophyta, how phanerogams are different from cryptograms. That is the main thing. Means each and every division you have to learn their characteristics, because I can ask any question in the exam. Who am I? I am a plant whose seeds can be divided into two equal halves or cannot be divided. Then which division am I? Then you have to write I am angiosperms. That way also questions can be asked. So what is your duty? Whatever is given in the textbook. I will not say you have to prepare only with the textual question answers, because now you all are in the 9th standard and you know ahead you will be in the 10th standard, and board does not give the permission only to ask the textual questions. So whatever is given in the textbook, each and every part I have covered while explaining to you the topics. Today we have revised each and every division, and I expect you to read, understand and know each and every word from the textbook very thoroughly, so you can cope up with any type of questions in the exam. Now we start with the revision for our next chapter, that is chapter number 7, energy flow in an ecosystem. First topic under this chapter is food chain and next topic is food web. Before going to the food chain, we have studied the different levels of ecosystem around you: primary consumers, secondary consumers, apex or top consumers and omnivores. Now, what is a food chain? I have told you that interactions go on continuously between producers, consumers and saprophytes. There is a definite sequence in these interactions which is called the food chain. We had taken up various examples of food chain previously. You can see here producers is the beginning, that is the green plants. They trap the energy from the sun, prepare their own food. This is utilized by the primary consumers, then the secondary consumer, then the tertiary consumer, the apex consumer and then finally decomposers. So there is a particular sequence which is seen in between these different links, and that is known as a food chain. Each food chain, it consists of 4, 5 or more than that links. An ecosystem consists of many food chains that are interconnected at various levels, and thus a food web is formed. So the next topic after food chain is food web. I had told you that an organism may be a prey for many other organisms. See, you take an example. You are vegetarians. You will not only eat potatoes. You may eat spinach. You may eat tomatoes. So many different things can be consumed by you. Similarly, in our entire ecosystem, You can see here the different ways. It is a mouse. A mouse can be eaten up by a rabbit. It can be eaten up by an owl. It can be eaten up by a wild cat. Same rabbit can be eaten up by a jackal. It can be eaten up by a wild cat. It can be eaten up by a lion. So, an organism may be the prey for many other organisms. For example, an insect feeds upon the leaves of various plants, but the same insect is the prey for different animals like frog, wall lizard. It doesn't mean that it is an insect which can be eaten up only by a frog. If that insect is seen, it is observed by a lizard, the lizard can consume that insect. So, if this is to be shown in a figure, it will form an intricate web. You can see a web being formed instead of a linear food chain. In our previous example, you have seen the food chain goes in a linear manner, whereas for a food web, you can see an intricate web, and such an intricate network is called a food web. Going to see the energy flow in an ecosystem. We have studied these concepts very thoroughly, that the flow of energy in an ecosystem is always a one-way transport, whereas the flow of nutrients within an ecosystem is cyclic. Now, why energy flow in an ecosystem is one-way transport? Because you know that the sun is the important source of energy in any ecosystem. Why sun? Because I had told you that producers or the green plants of the ecosystem, they form the first trophic level and they prepare their food with the help of solar energy, and hence sun is the most important source of energy. Green plants of the ecosystem store some of the solar energy in the form of food, and before reaching the decomposers, this energy is passed on from one trophic level to the next. I had told you how this energy travels. We had taken an example of chocolate box or a cake in the class. How a full cake, when it travels from one child to the other, how it goes on in a decreasing way. Similarly, that concept we can apply over here. What do decomposers do? They dissipate some amount of energy in the form of heat, but no part of the energy ever returns back to the sun. Sun is giving us the solar energy. It is used up by the plants. We consume the plants, or the primary consumers, they consume the plants, but never ever you have heard that sun again asks back for his energy, and hence such passage of energy is referred to as one-way transport. Those who are driving the vehicles, they know one way, two way. So here the energy, once it is received from the sun, once it comes in the ecosystem, it is utilized up for different processes but never returned back to the sun. Hence such passage of energy is referred to as one-way transport. Next is biogeochemical cycle. Here the flow of nutrients within an ecosystem, that is cyclic. Why it is cyclic, we have already seen. So cyclical flow of nutrients within an ecosystem is called the biogeochemical cycle. Now the types of biogeochemical cycles. First one is gaseous cycle, other is sedimentary cycle. What do you mean by sedimentary? First we will see what is gaseous. An accumulation of the main abiotic gaseous nutrients material is formed in the Earth's atmosphere. So from the word itself, gaseous, they tell you it includes various gases like nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, water vapor, etc. On the other hand, sedimentary word itself tells you it is related to the soil, rocks. So an accumulation of the main abiotic nutrient materials is found in soil. You can see here it is found in the Earth's atmosphere. Atmosphere, you know, consists of different gases. So here also beginning is same, but it is found in soil, sediment and sedimentary rocks, etc. of the earth. Here it includes different gases, whereas here it includes different soil components like iron, calcium, phosphorus, etc. So these are the two types of biogeochemical cycle. Now let us start with the first cycle, that is the carbon cycle. Total 3 cycles you are going to study in this chapter: the carbon cycle, the oxygen cycle and the nitrogen cycle. What do you mean by the carbon cycle? The circulation and recycling of carbon from the atmosphere to the living organisms and after their death back to the atmosphere is called the carbon cycle. The continuous process of circulation of carbon from the atmosphere by the living organisms, and when they die again back to the atmosphere, this total process is known as carbon cycle. Abiotic carbon atoms, why abiotic? No life, are circulated and recycled into the biotic form mainly through photosynthesis and respiration. You know, plants, they take up carbon dioxide and prepare the food. So, they are converted into biotic through the photosynthesis and process of respiration when we give out carbon dioxide. Hence, the carbon cycle is one of the important biogeochemical cycles. Plants convert carbon dioxide into carbohydrates. How? By the process of photosynthesis, and they produce carbon compounds like proteins, fats, etc. Herbivores, they feed upon the plants. Carnivores feed upon herbivores. What happens in such a way? The biotic carbon that is being converted by whom? By the herbivores. It is transported from the plants to the herbivores, from the herbivores to the carnivores, and from carnivores to the apex consumers. What happens when they die? Eventually, after their death, all the types of consumer are decomposed by decomposers like bacteria and fungi, and the carbon dioxide is released again into the atmosphere, and again it is utilized there by the living organisms. Means you can see a cycle over here. First, the carbon dioxide is taken up by the plants, food is prepared, then suppose these herbivores are consumed by carnivores, then it is transported from the plants to the herbivores, from the herbivores to the carnivores, from the carnivores to the apex carnivores, and after their death they are decomposed by the decomposers and carbon dioxide is released again into the atmosphere. From the atmosphere again it is used up by living organisms. What happens? In this way, carbon is continuously passed on from one living organism to the another. After the death of living organisms, carbon goes to the atmosphere and is again taken up by living organisms. So here we match with the first statement which we have seen. The circulation and recycling of carbon from the atmosphere to living organisms and after their death back to the atmosphere is called the carbon cycle, and it goes on in the form of a cycle. Hence the word carbon cycle. We move on to the next cycle, that is oxygen cycle. Oxygen forms 21% of the atmosphere. Very important to be known. It is present in the hydrosphere and lithosphere. So what is the oxygen cycle? Circulation and recycling of oxygen. Previously it was circulation and recycling of carbon. Here it is oxygen within the biosphere is called the oxygen cycle, which includes both the biotic and abiotic components. Like carbon, oxygen also is continuously produced as well as it is used up in the atmosphere. You know, you take in oxygen. Who gives out oxygen? Plants. As oxygen is found in various forms like molecular oxygen, that is O2, in the form of water, H2O, or carbon dioxide, or in inorganic compounds, the oxygen cycle of the biosphere is very, very complex. Oxygen, how it is released? It is released in the process of photosynthesis. You all know green plants, they produce oxygen by trapping the solar energy and preparing the food by taking in what? By taking in carbon dioxide. Whereas this oxygen is used up in the processes like respiration. You know, apart from green plants, all the other living organisms, they require oxygen for respiration. Combustion, that is burning, decomposition, corrosion. You know, when metals corrode, they make use of moisture and oxygen, rusting, etc. So, oxygen is released in the process of photosynthesis and used up in this different processes. The last and the final cycle is the nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen forms maximum, that is 78% portion of the atmosphere, and it is very, very necessary for the maintenance of cycle of nature. So what is the nitrogen cycle? The circulation and recycling of nitrogen gas into the form of different compounds through various biotic and abiotic processes in nature is called the nitrogen cycle. See, all the three definitions are same. Only in the first case the word was carbon, next it was oxygen, and now here it is nitrogen. Now all the organisms from the ecosystem, they participate in the nitrogen cycle, and also nitrogen is an important component of proteins and nucleic acids. As compared to the other elements in nature, nitrogen is inactive and it does not easily combine with other elements. Most of the organisms, they cannot use the free form of nitrogen. Now we are going to study the important processes of this nitrogen cycle. The first one is nitrogen fixation, and we have studied in chapter number 8. The bacteria like rhizobium, they help in the process of nitrogen fixation. So what is nitrogen fixation? Conversion of nitrogen into nitrates and nitrites through atmospheric, industrial and different biological processes. Next important process is ammonification, release of ammonia through decomposition of dead bodies and excretory wastes of organisms. Third process is nitrification, conversion of this ammonia into a nitrite and then nitrate. And final is denitrification, conversion of all the nitrogen compounds into the gaseous nitrogen. So these are the important processes of the nitrogen cycle, but a very important cycle which is required for the maintenance of cycle of nature. So here we complete with the revision of chapter number 7, that is energy flow in an ecosystem. In our next video, as per the demand from 1 or 2 students, I am going to first take up the numerical examples for resistors in series combination and parallel combination, and then we are going to continue with the revision for section A chapters. So till then, as I have told you, keep on reading and keep your notebooks completed so that you can revise well during your third online assessment exam. Thank you, dear children.